And the decision to make a left turn and a straight-in approach to Edwards Air Force Base involves the management of the orbiter's energy during the final seconds before touchdown because of the wind direction and the wind speed today out in the Mojave Desert. This will offer Commander Steve Oswald and pilot Bill Gregory the best opportunity to use the energy available in the final seconds before touchdown in the management of the orbiter's speed at main gear touchdown. Currently, Endeavour traveling a little over 22 times the speed of sound at an altitude of 235,000 feet above the Pacific, range to touchdown 2,000 miles, 21 minutes before main gear touchdown. Astronauts and technicians awaiting the arrival of Endeavour at Edwards Air Force Base, sitting on the steps of the crew transport vehicle, the people-moving device that will be buttressed up against the side of the orbiter after landing to enable the technicians and the transfer crew to go in to help the crew out of their seats. This is astronaut Dave Walker flying in a modified Gulfstream jet, the shuttle training aircraft, making final approaches to runway 22 to offer final thoughts and observations on the direction of the wind, its velocity, so that information to the astronauts aboard Endeavour can be forwarded prior to their final approach to runway 22. Endeavour currently 227,000 feet in altitude, descending at a rate of about 80 feet per second, range to touchdown 1,600 miles. Astronaut Dave Walker reporting back to flight controllers here that the handling characteristics of the shuttle training aircraft on final approach on his final run of the day were well within the ability of controllability. And his recommendation of a left-hand turn and a straight-in approach, which is a turn of less than 180 degrees, onto final approach to runway 22 is the preferred approach today to enable Commander Steve Oswald and pilot Bill Gregory to settle Endeavour back down on the runway just a little over 18 minutes from now. Endeavour now being commanded into its first roll reversal. This is a maneuver to bank the orbiter from left to right or vice versa to increase the drag during the entry, thus slowing the airspeed of the orbiter and dissipating the proper energy on the command of the onboard computers. 171,000 feet, descending at 170 feet per second, range to touchdown 466 miles, just 12.5 minutes from the end to this shuttle record endurance flight. Our systems at Edwards Air Force Base providing updated information for flight controllers here in Houston and the astronauts on board Endeavour. Time to touchdown just a little over 11 minutes from now. Conditions out at Edwards remain favorable for landing. Winds within limits. Range to touchdown 350 miles.
For Houston, energy, ground track, and nav are all go.
Roger that.
Flight dynamics officer reporting to the flight control team here and relayed up to Commander Steve Oswald that onboard navigation systems are dead set for runway 22 at Edwards Air Force Base and an on-time landing with the proper energy, the proper speed and velocity and altitude for this point of the entry back to Earth. Endeavour now traveling just 8 times the speed of sound at an altitude of 150,000 feet, approaching the California coast near Oxnard.
Like the back amps.
Endeavour Houston, we're looking at them. Stand by. Endeavour Houston, take TACANS.
Okay.
TACANS are the tactical air navigation systems aboard Endeavour, 3 redundant units which receive tactical navigational data for range, elevation, and bearing from radio beacons located at the landing site. Endeavour 9.5 minutes from touchdown, currently 132,000 feet in altitude, range to touchdown 195 miles. The California coast near the Oxnard-Ventura area south of Santa Barbara. Its computers honed in on runway 22 for an on-time landing just 7 minutes from now. Endeavour traveling about 3.5 times the speed of sound, less than 100,000 feet in altitude, range to touchdown 90 miles.
Endeavour Houston, take air data.
Okay, we'll take your data.
The air data system consists of two probes located on each side of the orbiter's nose, which have pressure sensors to calculate dynamic pressure, altitude, airspeed, the Mach numbers, the angle of attack, and the rate of descent for the orbiter. All goes into the orbiter's onboard computers to refine navigational data for the final minutes before touchdown. Approaching the area of terminal area energy management at about 2.5 times the speed of sound. The shuttle will be put through final banking maneuvers to bleed off excess speed prior to its arrival at the heading alignment circle for alignment to the runway with the proper velocity. First views from long-range tracking cameras at the Dryden Flight Research Center showing Endeavour soaring through wispy clouds, currently at an altitude of 70,000 feet, 40 miles from runway 22, the concrete runway, on which it will end its 16.5-day journey.
Endeavour Houston, we show you approaching the hack. No change to weather. The winds are 230 at 15 peak 22. That's 3 peak 4 from the right, 15 and peak 22 on the head. We would like a late drag chute deploy just in case we can get the crosswind DTO.
Roger that, we copy.
Endeavour now has gone subsonic at an altitude of 46,000 feet. Range to touchdown less than 23 miles.
Endeavour Houston, update to your altimeter, 30.12.
3012.
Commander Steve Oswald. Commander Steve Oswald has taken over from the computers on board. He is flying now as Endeavour hits the heading alignment circle. The reference point for commanders and pilots as they...
Houston, we show you on energy approaching the hack.
Roger that, Kurt.
Heading alignment circle is the imaginary point that pilots use as a reference point to align themselves with the runway at the desired altitude, airspeed, and rate of descent. Everything looking good for touchdown less than 3 minutes from now at Edwards Air Force Base. Twin sonic booms heralding the arrival of Endeavour after more than 16 days aloft. Tucked in that cargo bay, the ultraviolet telescopes, which collected reams of data for astronomers around the world.
Energy at the 180.
Roger that.
Commander Steve Oswald now beginning to make his left-hand turn down towards runway 22. Winds on the surface are well within acceptable limits.
Endeavour Houston, on energy at the 90.
Roger that.
The vortices streaming off of the wings of Endeavour as Oswald makes his turn to align himself with runway 22.
Fields in sight, Houston.
Copy, runway in sight.
Just a few hundred feet off the deck, Oswald will flare the orbiter's nose up. Pilot Bill Gregory will deploy the landing gear, and Endeavour will settle back to Earth after more than 16 days aloft. Endeavour now aligned with runway 22. Touchdown just over a minute away. Endeavour is traveling right now at a descent rate 7 times steeper than that of a commercial jetliner as Oswald prepares to flare up the nose prior to landing. Pilot Bill Gregory has deployed the landing gear. Main gear touchdown. Nose gear touchdown. The drag chute has been deployed. Endeavour rolling out on runway 22 at Edwards Air Force Base to complete a shuttle record 6.9 million mile astronomy research flight.
We'll stop, Houston.
Copy, will stop, Endeavour. And welcome home, Endeavour, after a fantastic record-setting mission. It'll be a tough one to beat, and it sure is nice to have y'all home.
Well, it's nice to be here, Kirk.
No post-landing deltas, and your go to pick up in a post-landing procedure.
Roger that. End of procedure. Houston, Endeavour. At the RJD's off, the side hatch, drag chute, and landing gear are safe.
Endeavour Houston, Oz, we copy all.
Commander Steve Oswald and pilot Bill Gregory stepping through their post-landing procedures as they head towards the point where they would unstrap themselves from their seats, and begin to make their way towards the middeck to be swapped out with the exchange crew, the astronaut exchange crew, who will take over for the final safing of the vehicle over the next couple of hours. With its landing today at Edwards Air Force Base, Endeavour will spend the next several days being prepared for a ferry flight back to the Kennedy Space Center to be prepared for its next mission in July, the STS-69 mission, whose commander, Dave Walker, flew weather over Edwards Air Force Base early today, providing updated visibility and wind information for the flight controllers back here in Houston. Transport vehicle now will be moved over to the side of Endeavour so that the astronauts can leave the orbiter within the next few minutes after they've had a chance to get out of those launch and entry suits.
Okay, you're in a barrel there, but I think that's manual on the mode. Take them back to rad flow, and then back to auto on the mode.
And emerging from the crew transport vehicle, Commander Steve Oswald, pilot Bill Gregory, and mission specialist Wendy Lawrence, shaking hands with NASA Administrator Daniel Golden, the director of the Dryden Flight Research Center, Ken Saleh, and former astronaut Vance Brand, who was the commander of the first Astro mission aboard Columbia in December of 1990. With his back to the camera wearing the vest is astronaut Dave Walker, who flew the shuttle training aircraft over Edwards earlier today to assess weather conditions that paved the way for today's landing. NASA Administrator Daniel Golden getting a first-hand look at the orbiter himself. Daniel Golden now discussing the end of the flight with Commander Steve Oswald, standing underneath Endeavour as it sits passively on runway 22 at Edwards Air Force Base following the successful completion of its 16.5-day mission with its landing about 1 hour and 20 minutes ago.